Welcome, beautiful people, to my channel where we deep dive into a little bit of everything. We're all about fun, shady reviews, candid conversations, and honest social commentary. But remember, this is a safe space where we aim to have a good time. Our opinions are all in good fun, and remember, no offense or harm is ever intended. I'm your girl, Tammy. Hit that subscribe button and let's get started. Okay, so we are back, y'all, and this is Ready to Love, episode 6. We are in the city of Dallas. And this episode was all about doubts, or at least it started to be. So right now in the beginning of the episode, we're meeting with the ladies in the ladies' lounge. And I have to say, and I think I've said this before in previous reviews, but this is probably the best dress season of Ready to Love. I feel like so many of the ladies, I think all the ladies are beautiful. The vibrance and the colors, just the way our skin tones look in the colors, it's been amazing to see. I really, really enjoy that. So many of the women have really brung it with the style. I like seeing the different designs and patterns. They've been lighting everybody really well this season, and even Tommy complimented them during the episode about everybody being so vibrant in terms of their color and their fashion. So I really, really have been enjoying that. Um, so they're in the ladies' lounge, and ladies are discussing the process, and Tommy says that he just wants to see where everybody is, if people are applying pressure to these women as they're going into elimination for this episode. The eliminationist episode is the women are going to be eliminating someone. And in this episode, Tommy really wants the ladies to explore their doubts. So their doubts about the guys that are in their tops. Like, what doubts do you have with these individuals or somebody who they've been trying to make a connection with, but they haven't really gotten there. And so he's charged them this week with going out on dates with people who they do connect with, but they have some doubts, or people who they are kind of not sure or on the fence about, and sort of express those doubts to them. I will say that one of the things I'm noticing this season, and I'm definitely going to discuss this a little bit further in the review, but production is definitely being messy this season. I'm seeing a lot of stuff where I'm starting to notice that they're sort of egging on energy that may not completely exist amongst the women. Like, I definitely know that there are things going on behind the scenes. We've all been seeing the content online, and that there were things probably happening that we weren't privy to. But I also noticed that production has been editing scenes together really weirdly. Also, some of these dates feel more like visits than dates. And you know how I feel about that. Even though I got my one-on-ones more this episode, I just also feel like it's been a little rushed and hurried. But I definitely noticed that when a lot of the women walked into the lounge, depending on who they were, we got a lot of resting B face from some of the girls. And I feel like that was not really authentic. Like, I feel like the women were just, they're sitting around waiting for different people to show up and walk up the steps or whatever. And I think we're just getting naturally candid faces, not so much people like looking snarky or messy with each other. I got a couple of folks that's just their natural face. And I think that production's trying to make it seem like these women have this antagonistic energy all the time. And I just don't get that from folks. I think people are just sitting there waiting for the episode to start, or rather for them to start shooting their scene with Tommy, and they're just sitting around waiting, and production is getting all of their faces at that time, and somebody walks in, and then they connect that walk into, oh, she don't like her, they don't like her. And I think that I noticed that around the couch when different women walked in, they would show different women's faces, or even all the women's faces. And I think these women are just sitting here minding their business waiting for this damn episode to start, like we are. So the first lady to kind of go on a date and explore with her date more is Aries. So as we know, Aries has a connection with both Phil, and she has a connection with Nigerian Chris. So Phil and Aries meet up, and I have to say they both were dressed very well. I love their outfits. Aries had this really beautiful like liquid leather dress on, I thought was real cute, and Phil was suited and booted in a nice black suit with a red handkerchief um in the pocket, I think he had a handkerchief square. It looked really good. They looked like they were matching. Honestly, they looked too dressy for the environment. I don't know. Tell me what y'all think. Drop down in the comments and let me know. Did you feel like they were overdressed? I feel like multiple times in this episode, people were dressed better than the scenery. And I just feel like this looked very casual for a place, and they were just too dressed up for this. I definitely think this would have been a nicer, maybe just a little bit more of a high-end restaurant for them, and the atmosphere to look a little less country hoedown is what it looked like. What it gave is abandoned barn, and I wasn't really feeling that. But nonetheless, we get to Phil and Aries sitting down and sort of talking about, how they're feeling about each other. This is like one of their first times kind of having a one-on-one with each other. Phil talks about a little bit apprehension and, maybe just some nervousness about topping Chris, who he knows is Aries' other, person in her top or whatever. So he's really laid back again. I feel like for Phil, the really laid back part is both good and bad. I feel like him being laid back is cool, but I also think that it harms him because he just feels too chill to me. I think you have to give a little bit of life and energy. Aries is already laid back. So I feel like him also being laid back, it doesn't give as much for their chemistry, but it works for Aries. So, hey, if she like it, I love it. Aries says that she's in a place in her life where if she's dating anyone, they have to want to be a father and a husband because she has children and that's where she is. And I guess her doubt is Phil exactly in the same place. What we do learn about Aries that I thought was interesting is that she was divorced twice. Now, maybe y'all caught it. I did not catch this in any of the prior episodes that she had been divorced twice. I knew she had been divorced once. And I gathered that she was married to her ex-husband. They have children together. And then that is her story. Then she got divorced. He didn't want the divorce. She got a divorce. And Phil says that he was divorced once. I didn't know she was divorced twice. I wonder how much of a red flag that was for some of the men on the show. Or was there sort of a past because she was an attractive woman, like they looked past why she had been divorced, or was it explained better? Because I know a large part of the reason that Brandon, who was in the very first episode, went home was not only because he was recently divorced, but he was also no freshly divorced. But I wonder when it's been a person that's had multiple divorces, does that make men more apprehensive to dating women who've, it hasn't worked out twice? So Phil said it doesn't bother him, and they continued on their date. They seem to have a lot of sweet, flirty energy. And, we'll see where it goes. But I definitely thought it was interesting that I didn't catch that before. And I do wonder what happened with the other marriage. Okay, so we are sitting down with our next couple, and I love the one-to-ones. I like these one-on-one dates more than the group dates because I feel like that's when we get the intimacy of I'm gonna call them the visits because again, like I said, I feel like these are just like snippets thrown together, so these dates don't feel as lengthy. I'm not getting that much from them, so I feel like they're little visits. Like we're having a little peek into somebody's situation more so than we're like seeing these developed relationships grow. But we're sitting down with Sierra and Chris 2.0, aka actor, aka teacher slash also martial artist. I don't know. Chris got a list of AKAs of his different occupations or trying, aka model, aka chiropractic student, failed. Girl, I don't know where we are right now. So Chris is sitting down with Sierra and that wig. I really do not love this wig on Sierra. I love, the black women, we're chameleons. We like changing our hairstyles and stuff. I'm all for that. I just don't love this look on her. I think it makes her forehead look a little bit bigger. And I love the shortcut on her. I think her shortcut is phenomenal. So I kind of hate this wig. It just hides her face too much for me. And she looks like a totally different person. And I really like the blonde hair. So I'm mad that she didn't wear it more during this season. So they're just sitting down talking about the process. To be honest, y'all, this was kind of a boring date. I feel like they were, looking for stuff to talk about or trying to find some type of connection. I didn't even really know they had a connection, but Sierra does inform us that Chris and her, this is really their first time hanging out after the hold down, and she really didn't know that much about him, so she's trying to learn more. Chris definitely got that southern drawl down, honey. Everything sounds like he is coming out of a country western movie or song. Is very much homeboy cowboy, and it feels a little actory, which may go on a line with what he actually does. So again, this date gave nothing. The biggest thing that came out of it was Chris made a joke about, Chris was describing himself, and he made a comment that he pays attention to detail. So Sierra then proceeds to say that okay, if you pay attention to detail, just so you know, I like Birkin bags. And that turned into like a thing that I don't think it needed to be, especially even when they were having further discussions later on in the episode. I got her joke. She was just saying that if you pay attention to detail, let me drop this little detail in there. I didn't get that she was trying to get him to buy her a Birkin bag. It's clear that she makes her own money. It's clear that she has her own luxury items. There's nothing wrong with people liking luxury items. If it's not your thing, it's just not your thing. And he did bring up this thing like, hey, if I couldn't buy you one, I be eliminated, or would I be somebody who you wouldn't pay attention to? And she was just like, no, I have my own stuff. I just thought this was blown way out of proportion, and just for us to try to get some type of scene going. It was a boring date. It was a joke. She genuinely was just saying like, hey, this is a detail to know in case you ever want to do something. Obviously, if they had left the show and were dating in a serious capacity. This date gave nothing. It went nowhere, and I was bored. Let's move on. So next we have Jessica and Chris, or Jessica, Nigerian Chris. So here's the thing, y'all. I'm rooting for Jessica and Chris. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only person. I think they, at least aesthetically, and I think even somewhat, I don't know, maybe to a certain degree to me, they fit the connection of, like that power couple. But maybe we need to stop digging for that a little bit more. Maybe power couples are getting us in trouble. I don't know. Y'all tell me. Let me know down in the comments. How do y'all feel about the two of them? I like Jessica and Chris. They're just cute to me. And so Jessica states that they're both really busy. Chris, is working at his job, and Jessica is an entrepreneur. She has her own coffee line. And so she's like, hey, we're so busy. We don't even really get the time to see each other. And so instead of, trying to meet up for a one-on-one date at some random restaurant, she comes to his work site and she actually brings him lunch. I thought this was really, really sweet. I thought it showed, an amazing connection of her understanding his schedule. And we know that Chris is pretty busy, and her catering to the fact that he and her have a schedule, but that she is an entrepreneur, so she gets to pick and choose her work times. I really liked this scene initially. I thought this felt very husband wifey, to be honest, which is why I'm sort of shocked that they aren't really connecting as much as I thought, because they seem so perfectly fit for the things that I think he's pursuing in life. But I am getting from this scene that Chris definitely wants, and he does express that he definitely wants more soft and less boss chick energy, which I didn't feel like Jessica gave that in droves. I get that she's a direct person. I get that she's very clear, and she expresses that sometimes with Chris that doesn't come across as easily, the communication that she has. She said she actually has a better connection with Marie than she does with him when it comes to the way that they talk, and there's such an ease and the freeness to this. But Chris expresses that he wants to just see more of a nurturing side. And I can guess, obviously, from the last episode, we saw that he really struggles with that because his mom died very early in his life. And I think he's looking for that. That can be a little bit of a red flag, and also like something of note, because you want to nurture and cater to your husband. You want to, be soothing to him and be his peace, so to speak, to a certain degree. But I don't think anybody wants to be anybody's mama. I think when you realize somebody has lost their mother, you want to give sort of a soothingness to them that feels similar, but nobody's looking to be your mom. And I think that your wife is your wife. And that's something that I feel like Chris has got to maybe work out in a maybe therapy situation, so that he doesn't push a woman into that mode of being more of a mother and than a significant other. And I do think that that's what made him connected with Aries the way she like loved on her boys. But your wife is not your mother. You're not her son. And so I worry about any woman getting involved with him. And it looks like this upcoming episode, the ex might be revealing that that is in fact the role he will put you in. Jessica talks to Chris about her doubt, and her doubt is inconsistency with him. That he says he wants these things, he says they're important, but is he putting the time into calling back and to being consistent, into showing his interest in a real strong way? Chris acknowledges that, but he also says, hey, I don't hear from you completely either. So they both acknowledge that the inconsistency is something they can both improve on, and that they will both work at it to make sure that they're trying to see if this connection is really worth something. So we have a coffee date with Marvin and Kat. Why are we here, y'all? Why is Marvin still here? There is no connection with any of these women. Why are we still being subject to Marvin in these excruciating dates with these women where it's clear he's just filling in the circle that seems closest to the answer they would like. And that's exactly what we got on this coffee date. I also noticed on this coffee date, and I really do like Kat, but I do, she gives off a certain a little bit of a little bimbo energy that I don't really care for. It feels inauthentic to who she is. Like, I think she's full of life. I enjoy that part, but something about it gives, it's giving off a little bit like I'm trying to appear like the girl that's so effortlessly enjoyable versus like this is just my genuine energy and attitude. um it's I don't really love that. I want to see the more authentic real person. We know that there's more to this individual and layers. So I just really want her to show that more. To me, she just gives off a little bit of like a overly happy versus like just a genuineness that I want to shine through any more. Something that was interesting is that Marvin is really into Comic Con. He's really into and he's currently making like an outfit for Comic Con. People don't know. It's definitely like a nerdy thing, but it's a cool nerdy thing that, you know, if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. And so, you know, just huge comic book fairs across the country. There's a very large one in San Diego. And if you're into like comic book movies and that whole lore, and there are millions and millions of people who are globally, you know, they go to these different things. And I noticed that Marvin is into that. And so he's currently telling her about that. And it was nice to hear about a passion that he has that was past uh, erotica, to be honest with you, and past BDSM and past sex. I just enjoyed seeing him talk about something that had nothing to do with those topics, and he seemed to be really excited and he sort of lit up. Um, but Kat still feels reluctant. She feels like she just still doesn't really know who he is. She wants to know more. She feels like a lot of times when they're having conversation, she's not getting complete authenticity from him. He's just sort of, again, bubbling in the answer that sounds the closest to what he thinks they would like. Kat is also a bit nervous because she feels like, okay, if I'm pursuing something, they have good conversation on the phone. What is Marvin's motivation around, you know, bringing up the erotica of his lifestyle so much past the books? Because her concern is, can he maintain a monogamous relationship? So she straight up and down asked him, like, hey, based on your lifestyle, based on the things that you're into, would you be into monogamy? And Marvin initially halts and then he says yes. And that to me was something that, of note, a red flag in terms of the fact that, are you giving me the answer I want to hear, or are you giving me the answer that is truthful? And Kat definitely gave the side eye of, I don't trust this answer. He's literally just answering the questions that you like. Marvin is giving a lot of the women person at an interview that really needs the job energy. He very much is reading their body language, and if it doesn't feel right, or if their body language suggests that they don't really trust what he says, he tries to add a supporting statement to me that solidifies that the answer is closest to what they want. But the thing is that they're in on it. So it's almost like somebody at a job interview who is interviewing for a job, and maybe he's getting a feeling that the people interviewing him on like a panel are not feeling him as a choice. And so he tries to like shore it up with some more statements that will add to make them like kind of change their mind. So I can understand why the ladies just aren't connecting with Marvin. And honestly, I'm just like, he was a clear person to me to go home. But, you know, they're letting him run into episode 6. And I think it's because we're running out of interesting characters. Okay, so is anybody else confused about Kira and Herbert? I never saw this connection. I don't know. Even when they were in the men's lounge last week, I could have swore he said that Lee and Janelle were his top two connections. So it threw me off that they were even on a date. But I do know that Tommy was saying, like, hey, even people you're on the fence about, you should connect with. You know, the date happens at Kira's place. I thought she had a really cute place. Herbert brings her a toy. He brings her a gift, and it's actually a toy for her dog. Her dog was super cute. And you know, they're sort of connecting. She's gonna cook for them. I just didn't get a connection from them that felt romantic. I definitely got more like friends, cool friends or whatever. I didn't get romantic connection. And I don't think Kara got that either. You know, one of the things that she mentioned on their date that I thought was really clear and it stand out is something that Janelle actually mentioned ironically on the date with Herbert in the last episode when they were at pickleball, which is that Herbert is very nonchalant. He's easy to talk to, but he's too nonchalant, too laid back, and he does not pursue the women aggressively. And I think women in general want to be pursued. Most people want to be pursued, but I think that women definitely don't want to be the ones chasing anyone. And I think with Herbert, the women connect with him initially. Everybody said the same thing. He's like a teddy bear. He's very soft. He's very easy to talk with. But I think once the connection is there, you have to keep that energy going. And Herbert seems to be fall off. And he's saying that the process for him is a lot with three women. And I find that to be weird because you came on a dating show knowing exactly how it worked. Ready to Love is in its eighth season. It's not in the second season. It's not in this first season. So you knew you would be on a show where you'd be dating multiple women to find a connection. You knew you would have to juggle the different energies, the different personalities to go out and find your person. So when people come on the show and go, it's too much for me or it's overwhelming, I'm like, why are you here? Why are you wasting our time? And why are you wasting these women's time? So, Janelle and Kira both echoed the same thing, that Herbert's follow through is not exactly what's up, especially because he's saying he's looking for his potential wife. He's just a little too laid back. He acknowledges it, but it's clearly behavior that he continues to practice with multiple people. I wonder what Lee will say, because that was the other person he claimed to have a connection with. Um, Kira is energetic with him. I like her youthfulness, but I also think it comes across a bit young. It comes across a little high school. I get that she's peppy, and naturally, because she was a cheerleader, she's peppy. Like I said before in the previous, I've had girlfriends who I went to college with that after we graduated, they went on to become professional cheerleaders just for a short period of time. It's not really something that can sustain you as a full-time gig. They just don't pay enough. So you ultimately probably do it in conjunction with your regular job, or you may do it when you first get out of school, or, as a side gig, but you don't really do it as like a full-time thing. But to me with Kira, I just got that she is giving, I don't know, it feels like she's just giving too young of an energy. Like during the date, she asked him to do a TikTok dance with her. She said it wasn't TikTok, it was similar to TikTok, but she just wants to see what people's energy is. Maybe she was just trying to see if he could match her on the more hyper level, because she is a little bit more energetic than he is. And you want somebody to kind of meet you in the middle. But for me, if somebody asked me to do that for a say, I can't front, I would probably say the date is over. I'm not going to do no TikTok dance with you on no first date. We are here to get to know each other. Over time, certainly that could be a thing. But Herbert seemed to have a little bit of fun. But what I also will say is that from Kira in his date, and he mentioned this, and I do feel like I've seen this now with a couple of dates, I don't get a lot of depth from her. In all of the dates that we've seen her on up until this episode, Kira has kind of been drilling the men. She's been, getting in with them to find out who they are and connect with. But I don't really see a lot of depth. We kind of know she was a cheerleader. She can be bubbly. She can be energetic. She got white friends. She got black cousins. But there's just not a lot of depth. We don't know anything deep about her as much as we do with the other women. With the other women, we have something about them personal. Well, with the exception of Lee, I also feel like Lee falls into this category of no depth that we've been seeing on screen. And I feel like I wonder where this connection is really going, because Herbert gives me depth. I'm going to need depth. And I just don't see any deepness with the two of them. So, y'all, while we're watching Herbert and Kira have their date, we're intertwined with Quentin and Janelle, who are going on their first date because, well, not their first date, but their first solo one-on-one. They've been on a group date before and in group settings, but they're finally together. I have to say, this was actually my favorite visit of all. This visit felt the closest to a real date, in my opinion. It was very grown and sexy. The atmosphere matched their clothes. Quentin just gives off like vibes. Like, yes, honey. He just gives off grown man maturity, but also like a fun youthfulness to him. There's a sexiness. This date felt sexy. That's how I would describe it. It felt flirty. It felt grown. It was one of the few that felt like this of the other dates, besides, I think, Aries and Phil. I got the most energy from Aries and Phil's date and Janelle and Quentin's date. It felt like grown people on a date talking about grown things. And in this grown thing, Janelle mentioned that her doubt was the age difference, because Janelle is older than Quentin, I think by 6 years or so. I think he's like 34 and I think she's like 41 or whatever. Well, she might be 42. I'm not sure. and she wanted to. I'm sorry, y'all. I feel like I'm coming down with a cold, so I excuse me. But I just felt like this was an interesting conversation to be had, especially because on almost all the seasons of Ready to Love, we've been seeing a lot of people that are different in age. You know, Ready to Love normally adds in people who are in their early 30s all the way to like their early 50s. And we see more people within the mid 30s and the 40s than we see at the spectrum of the 50s or the early 50s or the early 30s. So whenever we see those people, it's usually like an issue where they either get eliminated early because of the age difference. So it was a good thing that we finally had a conversation with some folks about it. I think it's a valid concern. I think it's a valid conversation to have when you're an older woman and you're dating a younger man. I know a lot of older women who simply will not date younger men, period. It's very much in reverse when it comes to men and women. A lot more men are more open because younger women, they want to have children, they're interested to date them. They don't have as much reluctance. But I find that older women have more reluctance with younger men because I think the maturity thing mentally. And I think there is an insecurity amongst older women about whether or not he'll still be attracted because you're getting older and you're aging, but you're aging in a lot of ways that men don't struggle with as much as they age, or that women just have to do more to keep themselves looking a certain way longer. Especially if you have a younger husband, you want him to still find you attractive. And so I think that Janelle was asking real questions that a lot of older women just don't even want to ask, so they don't even approach or think about the idea of dating a younger man. And I do remember I had a conversation once with a woman who was in the military, and her husband is about 5 years younger than her. And I was shocked because I think she was like 35 at the time or 36. And I think he, was 5 years younger than her. So she was saying how what got her, because she was like, he's like fresh out of his 20s. That's how she felt. And she said was just his maturity level. He just was very clear about what he wanted. They at that point had been married for about 3 years. And she said he hadn't wavered on who he was. Like he was clearly into his wife. He was very mature about what he wanted. He wasn't a young guy. He wasn't into the club. He was into wanting to be a family man. So I think a lot of times it comes down to you having those conversations with that man and knowing where he is. Um, Quentin is beaming from ear to ear because he's happy to be on his date with Janelle. He's definitely into this girl. And he was very clear about what he brought to the table. He flirted with her. He made a little bit of a cute joke. Um, I just think he definitely has good energy towards her and her towards him. I'm shocked that, I think he's reached to being in her top over Herbert. I don't see the connection. I do see the connection with her and Herbert, but I just don't. I'm not getting him for anyone, to be honest with you, Herbert. So I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like this man is zoned in. But I think Janelle's reluctance is also because a lot of women feel like if you give into this younger guy, he ends up not being what you thought, or there is some immaturity there. It's gonna be you're gonna feel like I should have known better because I'm older and I should have known better. So I think that's also the issue. But I love that we touched on some different things. I like that she felt vulnerable and comfortable enough for him to reveal that she was adopted and that how that affected her, and maybe even how it affects her in thinking of wanting to have kids, and what that looks like. He said he's open to having children but also open to adoption. Like he just seems to be open and ready to start a family and clear. He just felt grown to me in this moment. And so I really enjoyed it. Their date was very refreshing. It was nice to see a fun and flirty side, but it was also nice to see a mature side of things. Again, I feel like them, along with Aries and Phil, had the sexiest, most realistic visits that felt more like dates. Now, we know this date with Maria and Kira was definitely a setup. I know that they had a little bit of a connection from the last episode when they did that improv thing. Maria was saying that, he saw some things and he was questioning it. I know that they had a conversation about culture, but production set this date up for it to be a mess. We knew that they was going to talk about the whole cultural thing. I'm sure they already knew how Kira felt. And that's what this scene felt like. It was very confrontational. And it was definitely set up for us to see drama between the two. So they head to an ice cream spot, and they're sort of like getting ice cream bars made or whatever. I've seen a couple of those places. I've been to one. I mean, the gimmick is going to me once you've been there once or twice. I don't know, but maybe it's good other places. Y'all let me know if y'all been to any of these places like this. But I will say that Dallas, We have had so many seasons already. Dallas is really on point with showing their food scene and showing their restaurant scene. Honestly, it makes this like a fun place to date. But Kira sits down with Marie and they're having a discussion. She obviously brings up the fact that he asked the cultural question because it wasn't just him that mentioned it in the men's lounge, but he was the person that was doing the elimination date with her last episode. And he expressed what some of the men were feeling. And after hearing what Quentin said. And so Kira said that she felt prejudged by Marie. She felt upset with the fact that there was questioning about her blackness. And I found that to be obviously hypocritical because she did the exact same thing to Quentin. And she expressed that with Quentin very early on with the women in the lounge. She also prejudged him on that. And when they went on the first date, instead of talking to him about something else, she brings up the fact that she wants to know if he dates white women. And then she proceeds to break down whether or not he dates Latinos, and those are his preference, like as if he never preferred black women as an option, and she had nothing to go off of but her energy around him. It was just really really a weird situation. And she seemed very confrontational. Marie was expressing how he felt, like his commitment to his community, and he just wanted to know where she stood because it had come up. And she just was very confrontational, very upset about the fact that she felt like he was, I guess, questioning her blackness. She sort of had an attitude through the date. And it was weird that she again had an attitude on something that she had, put on Quentin. And so, Marie kind of ended the date with like, look, I'm already off this. Like I really wasn't feeling her to begin with in the first part of this. And now she's kind of coming across very, very confrontational when we don't really have that kind of a relationship. And, I just asked a simple question. So he was off of it. He was like, look, I'm not changing my commitment to my community or my people. And I am not going to be like yelled at about something that it was a genuine inquiry. And for the most part, they had a positive moment, but she just really was up in arms about something that, she did to somebody else. So he was off it. We move on. Now, y'all know exactly what I'm going to say when it comes to this. Why is Marvin still here? It just feels like at this point, they're just throwing him on everything because it's going to be, his last time on screen. It just gave, why is Marvin still here? And really more importantly, why are Marvin and Lee on a date? There was no chemistry to me. They keep throwing her in this atmosphere at this man she keeps saying that she has this reluctance for and she's not interested in. And she's like, so I really don't understand. I feel like his strongest connection was with Unique, and that's gone. So it didn't make a lot of sense that they keep bringing him on dates with Lee, who clearly seems to be more disgusted by him than anything. I never really understood this connection. Um, I also want to say this in terms of Lee. I'm gonna need her to reduce her lash size. It's clear that they're irritating her eyes, and her eyes are constantly watery as a result. Like we barely can see her eyes, but when we do, the lashes are blocking them. And I've seen a lot of women that have that eye irritation, or they constantly have watered, irritated eyes where there's like a lot of redness around because the lash base is so heavy and it's in their face so often. It's actually messing with their ability for their eyes not to run. I don't know. She just always looks like she's about to cry. And I feel like it has to do with the lashes and the maybe the length of them and also the weight and how it's irritating her eyes. But that's just me. I don't know. Y'all let me know if y'all think the lashes are a problem. I feel like they are clouding her face a bit. And I also think they're causing irritation that makes that redness more apparent. She always looks like she's on the verge of tears. Um, I got nothing from this date. Marvin is quirky. Lee didn't know that. He also mentions that he's into some other like unique nerdy thing, which was totally cool. I'm not shading what he was into. I think it was nice that he showed a different part of his personality, but she's bored. And honestly, they're both kind of boring. Marvin's saying the same things that he always needs to say to get the ladies to connect with him and see him as a possible choice. I think he also knows he's on the chopping block and it would be nice to not be gone so soon. So he's trying to shore up connections similar to, I think, maybe what Red did and maybe some others when they thought they could be going home. But I also give that Lee gives boring as well. We don't really know that much about her. We know that she is into fitness. We know that she's soft spoken and we know that she's kind of sweet. But we don't know a lot about her. There's not a lot of depth there. The only time that I felt like we got a lot of conversation from her was when she initially had that sit down date with Quentin and we got to know a little bit more about their families. But honestly, I haven't learned anything about her. I feel like I know more about the other women on the show, and I probably could give something on each woman on that show more than I could with Kara and Lee. They both just give surface, no depth. But they are on dates where they're constantly questioning the men about digging deeper. But I don't feel like I know anything more than that. At least not on camera. It's just giving dead on arrival every time. And, it makes the dates boring when it's just that disconnect. This was a visit we honestly did not need. Okay, y'all. So I guess all of these dates, were supposed to be visits because this is what they were saving the amped up spark for. This is the most drama on the show. It seems to be actually with the people in the lounges than it is so much, and specifically in the ladies' lounge, and it is so much with the dates. I feel like this is the most our hearts got pumping the entire episode. So we're back in the ladies' lounge and we're talking about this week of dates and of doubts. Tommy is talking to the women individually about who they felt a spark with, who they were connecting with. Aries talks about her spark with Phil, and she sort of smiles, and you can see that they have a good energy and connection. She says she feels something with him. Janelle and Quentin, she talks about how she was reluctant around the age, but he shows up very grown. And Tommy also emphasized a grownness and maturity to him. I'm telling y'all, I get that from Quentin. Like that man is ready. Now, whether him and Janelle are going to be a couple or together, that's their thing, I do not know. But he's definitely ready. Kira and Herbert, she mentioned that she liked the energy that he brought to their date, that there's still a little something there, but she's trying to see. Jessica mentions her and Chris are going to work at trying to communicate better, but she thinks that there's something still left. He then starts getting on who their bottoms are and what the situation is. And I feel like maybe he should stop asking this in the ladies' lounge, because I feel like this is where it always goes left in conversation, is whenever he asks the bottom conversation, that's when it goes awry. Like from the beginning with Tequila and then Janella Tequila, and then now this episode, it just feels like whenever he starts asking, who do you not feeling? That's when the drama starts. So maybe Tommy should stop asking that in the ladies' lounge at the end and maybe write it on a piece of paper or something. Anyway, he starts talking to the ladies about who they're not feeling. Sierra brings up Chris, and the room sort of agrees that Chris is just not somebody they're feeling. They feel like he is campaigning. I think Janelle said it best. He's lobbying for the women's vote, but he's not really giving authenticity. He also has had a slew of jobs that he keeps bringing up. It feels like a rehearsed script. And again, I believe that there's some indication that Chris actually is an actor on the outside of the cameras, from offline. And so they're just feeling like giving them an acting role. He's not giving them his authentic self. And so all of the ladies kind of resoundingly say the same thing, which is such a disappointment because Chris is a cutie and we definitely thought he was a nice addition physically to the show. But it does feel like he may be only there to, I don't know, audition for a next job. Um, Many of the women also echo the same thing around Marvin and the fact that they feel like his lifestyle is just not conducive to what they're into. Many of them feel like he doesn't have a lot of depth and he essentially is going to just say whatever he needs to say to connect with you, but it's not authentically who he is. So we see that there's just not a lot of connection there with him. Now, this is where it starts to get a bit spicy. I feel like, and I want to say this, I'm going to point out a couple of things regarding this before we get into like the confrontation of it all. I feel like this is where production to me gets very messy. There was a clear edit in two of these scenes with something that Kara said and something that Janelle said, to where they tried to make it back to like it went from 0 to 100. And there clearly was a moment in between those moments that drew on this argument. And both ladies got, I think, seen incorrectly. And I think, or we didn't get enough of the escalation to the argument. So it just came across like they were attacking each other. And I did not feel like it was just cut up badly. And it's shocking to me, for them to be on a network where you could just have better production quality. The cut up of this scene was so weird to me. So the edit to a while, because you see a moment where Kara is expressing how she's not feeling Quentin, or she's not feeling Marie. And we know that Jessica is feeling Marie. I don't know that Marie and Janelle had anything, but Jessica is feeling Marie and another person is feeling Marie. But Jessica exerts the fact that she feels like they're feeling like Kira's elimination of those men is because of things that they said to her. But specifically, she said those same things back to Quentin. And that's really what the argument is around. Kira says she's not feeling Maurier because she feels like he questioned her blackness and her commitment to community, and she's not feeling that. And Jessica points out the fact that, Maurier is a good person, but he questioned something that more than one man questioned. And it is because Kira has acted in a way that suggested that she's not like that. And it is ironic that she is saying that because, she said that in the very beginning of the show about Quentin, but she really had no evidence. And Janelle reiterates the same thing, which is that you're upset about something that you accuse another person of being. And you are the one that hyped up the fact that, you mostly have white friends. I don't think she knew that part, but she does talk about the fact that she said that, she's the closest thing to a white girl there. I felt like that was Kara more so saying that she comes across as very upbeat and perky, and that could be seen as white. But I think the women on this show are aware of code switching. They're aware of professionalism. So I thought that was a weird comment even from the beginning. I didn't know where she was going with the whiteness. Like she said, she was more proper. That suggested to me that she was saying that the other women weren't as much. And I didn't get that from any of the women. Many of them work in professional fields. And obviously I didn't get anybody was super like hood or, extra. If anything, we kind of got that feeling from Tequila more than anybody. But even then, I feel like all of them had the ability to code switch, or their natural personality was one that they came across as educated or well spoken. So I didn't really get where she was coming from with that completely, but we rolled out. But it's a back and forth silliness fight about, whether or not these two men are getting Kara irritated because they called her out on things that she could be kind of messy about in the background. Kara then states that Janelle and Jessica give her mean girl vibes, and they seem to have picked on her specifically, and she's not feeling that situation. To me, again, this fight was so unnecessary. I felt like Tommy watching this, like it was irritating to me on both ends. Both women were being extra, but I will say that 0 to 100 energy that they gave both Kira and Janelle was really fake. And I'm kind of blaming production for this moment because there was a clear cut from when Kira said that she messed up the names of the men to when Janelle said, "Don't play with me." That didn't even make sense. Those don't even go together. And then Kara was apologizing right before that. And she wasn't apologizing about the name. I think she was apologizing about something that she said about Janelle when they were trying to work out whatever that issue was. But production edited that together, and it was a really bad edit. So this scene to me was just really badly edited. We don't know the full argument. Ready to Love needs to get on top of their ish. I don't know what they're trying to create from this moment, and probably just trying to bring some energy to the episode, child. But either way, this argument irritated my nerves. Both Kara and Janelle were irritating in this moment. I understood where both women were coming from, and I appreciate that Janelle and Jessica called Kara on the hypocriticalness because she did approach the other men in those same capacities. But I also understood where Kara was coming from about maybe the approach. I will say that I just ultimately agree with Tommy. Everybody can be more respectful and more cordial to each other on this journey. It's never really that deep. And I will say that I identify with what both women were discussing, but I will say this, and I think this is something that is also currently happening on Love and Marriage Detroit. If you do watch that show and you know the characters, with Christina and Colby, in terms of the fact that I've seen this happen. I know I'm a person that sometimes comes across like this, but not mean so much, but just like very direct. And I think that, and I'm not easily emotional or easy to tears. When people who have lighter voices or perkier personalities, or they're very emotional very quickly, they almost always get the empathy of the crowd because they just come across less harsh. But it doesn't mean that they're not also wrong, or they're also immature, or they're also messy. And that's always where I get a soft spot for people who kind of get taken as mean when they're more direct. I do not necessarily feel like Janelle is directly a mean girl. I do think she is more direct. She's more assertive in her tone. And I think that both women were wrong, but I do think that Janelle gets a lot of flack because, one, I mean, the ridiculousness that's going on online in general with all of these women in these back and forth conversations is utterly stupid. But I do think that her tone and her not being the first person to cry makes it harder for her to win an argument. I've seen that happen in workplace environments and other places where as soon as somebody get emotional, somebody start crying, somebody start tearing apart, then automatically you're seen as a more empathetic soul, even if you are messy. And we kind of saw that with Kira after the episode where she ended up saying that she wasn't trying to make friends with these women. If y'all don't remember, she said that earlier in the season. And she also gave the stink eye to Kat when she walked in, like, who is this girl? I feel like she can dish it, but she can't take it out. I mean, that's the what the hell is dish it but can't take it out? Y'all need to correct me in these comments when I be messing up. I feel like she can dish it, but she can't take it. And I think when confronted with, and I think Jessica made this point, when confronted with her same energy, even if it's snarky, she then is now she refolds back into like, oh, I didn't mean it that way, but you kind of laid it out like that. So I think if you're not willing to take it, don't dish it out. At the end of the conversation, Tommy just says, be more respectful and cordial. And I just think that's how it should go forward. He says that there is a curveball. 2 men will be going home. I mean, there wasn't too much more to this. I feel like basically what we saw was um, Chris went home and Marvin went home. So they get to the elimination round. Kara and Chris go out for elimination. Marvin and Kat go out, and then Maria and Lee go out. Maria and Lee, it was mostly about Maria having homie vibes and him having just more of a friendship vibe, and Maria saying like, hey, I hate that I'm in the friend zone. I try to have a connection with these women that is a friendship because I think that's important in love. Lee feels like, okay, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you've got to they want to have more of a romantic connection with you. So you need to kind of step up your game a little bit. And he said he's serious about his commitment to community. So he doesn't feel bad about how things went with Kira because, that's who he is. He's Black. He like living Black. He is Black. He's not pretending like he's not Black. And he ain't apologizing for being Black. So we then move on to Marvin and Kat. Marvin and Kat, basically it's the same old, same old. The women are not feeling Marvin. They don't think he's authentic. He said he's not customizing himself to fit the mold, but we know that that's not true. Ultimately, Kat says the lady said you're not ready to love. Marvin said it's nothing that he thinks he could have done better. He feels like he tried to show who he really was and that folks just were not ready. Kira and Chris. Now, this is where it got a bit interesting because it is clear that Chris did a little bit of I would say, 90-degree turn on his energy. So far, we see him be pretty respectful with that Southern drawl. But this time around, as Kira is trying to mention to him the things that the women are not feeling, Chris is not being receptive. He's very much in there with an attitude. He's not feeling what she has to say. He feels like the women are the problem, that they're not accepting who he says he is. She says that we feel like you're, rehearsing who you are with all of us and you're just giving us the same old campaign lines. She said, she mentions that there's a woman, she doesn't say the person's name, that even suggested that, I think he tried to call her, she tried to call him and he wasn't, whatever. He immediately singled out that it was Lee. She never said the name. She just said a person. And he was like, well, Lee neither, whatever. Girl, when I tell you, it was very different energy. And it makes you put a side eye on Chris. Like, are you really low key? Not who we thought you were? So Chris's energy is very much, I do not care about this. And he waits till she gets to the end. He's like, basically, F this. These women are not what I thought they were. I'm not fit to change. I tried to show them who I was and they just don't accept it. They don't accept it. Let's move on. So Chris finds out he's the other person to go home. And that leaves us ready for another episode of The Mess next episode. Well, episode 7. Tell me what y'all think. Jump down in the comments. Let me know how y'all were feeling about this review. I apologize for my voice breaking up so much. I think I'm starting to get like a little bit of a cold. So I appreciate y'all rocking out with me. Let me know. I want to know how y'all felt about the episodes. How are y'all feeling about the show going so far? Do you feel like people are being authentically themselves? Do you feel like there are any real connections here? This feels like a nice, calm season, but it's a little dry on the lot for me. So I really needed to step up a little bit more and not just the arguments with the ladies' lounge. But let me know what y'all think in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode.